Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. Our program is about to begin. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. Our program is about to begin. Thank you. Please welcome back to the stage, Lisa Nelson.
Well, hello. Before we begin lunch, please welcome our friend Ralph Drollinger from Capital Ministry as he leads us in prayer.
Thank you. Let's bow our heads in prayer. Father, we thank you for Sonny Perdue and his emblematic prayer this morning and his love for you as a layman, his ability to articulate truths from the scripture. What a model he is for all of us. At the same time, we know that your word says that as a man thinketh in his heart, so he is. Or better, right actions begin with right thinking, and right thinking begins with thinking right about God. May we have Bible teachers not only in state capitals, but in our city governances, our county governances. We have 40,000 incorporated cities. Only you could put your Bible teachers in those locations. And so we beseech you for such a goal as that. It's bigger than we could accomplish, but we look to you and the partnership of people in this room to achieve that so that we have right thinking, which leads to right policy. It's to that end that we strive and labor, and we thank you for the ability to do that. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you very much. I want to take this opportunity to give a huge thank you to the ALEC staff who've been working behind the scenes to make this event a success for the past several months. They've been working tirelessly. We have a saying at ALEC, teamwork makes the dream work. And that's coined by Courtney Cook, who is our fearless leader on these meetings and produces everything. One of the major themes I've seen this week in all of our meetings, sessions, discussions, workshops with colleagues is the idea of government at home, individual liberty fostering citizen engagement in our communities. Indeed, government responses to the pandemic and to the parents who merely seek to participate in school board discussions on how their children should be educated has demonstrated how the decisions of state and local officials directly impact our lives, if not more than anything else that happens in DC. Citizen engagement in local government has never been greater, which is why I'm happy to tell you that ALEC's sister organization, the American City County Exchange, ACE, which is focused on issues facing city, county, and in addition to the ever-important school boards, is steadily growing. To tell us more about ACE, please join me in welcoming Executive Director of ACE, County Commissioner Andre Cushing.
Hey, good morning. I have a question for you. How many people here have served on a county commission or as a supervisor in your local council or on a school board? Would you raise your hand? Okay. Don't you wish you had ALEC and the support when you were in that position? Well, I'm very happy to tell you that because of the vision of Lisa Nelson, they brought in the organization that I have the honor of being the director for now, the American City and County Exchange. We are basically ALEC for you local and county elected folks. Now, there are some states like mine in Maine where you have term limits. We can serve a certain amount of time, and then sadly, we have to leave this incredible organization. Not anymore if you decide that your public service career is not over. If you do like I did and go to the county level or back to serve on your school board or your city council, you can continue this relationship throughout your public service career. That's what ACE offers as a partner with ALEC. So if you start on a town council and then move to the legislature, join us in ACE. And then when you move to the legislature, like Ellen Troxclair, you can be a member of ALEC. If you're an ALEC and you're saying, I've had enough of this state capital stuff, but I want to serve my community, come join us at ACE. It's an incredible opportunity that no other organization for elected officials in this country now offers, and we are proud to work with limited government, free market, and federalism-minded individuals. So thank you. Look for some of our spots on ALEC TV. And certainly, we look forward to talking to you when we're coming to your state about how you can engage your colleagues. We can be a farm team for some of those times, but we thank you for what you do for our states, and we look forward to growing our numbers so that we can be a more dynamic force for local and county government. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Andre. Thank you so much, Andre, for the work you're doing. And it was Ellen Troxler who I think was one of our original chairs. So congratulations to her on winning her primary and going on to the state legislature in Texas. As we all know, all eyes are on Georgia on election night this year. Our next virtual guest is running to become the newest U.S. Senator from Georgia. He was born in Wrightsville in the state and attended Johnson County High School before going on to become an All-American at the University of Georgia, where he won the Heisman Trophy as a junior and was a member of the 1980 National Championship team. He spent the first 3 seasons of his professional career with the New Jersey Generals of the United States Football League and was the league's MVP during his final season in 1985. In 1985, he was drafted by the Dallas Cowboys as the 5th overall pick in the NFL draft and earned consecutive Pro Bowl and second-team All-Pro honors from 1987 to 88. He was also a member of the Minnesota Vikings, Philadelphia Eagles, and New York Giants before concluding his career with the Cowboys. He was inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame, where we were all the other night, and I'm sure you saw lots of pictures. And deciding to continue his sports career by competing for his country, he was a member of the U.S. bobsled team in the 1992 Winter Olympics. Despite all of those achievements, we are confident that his best days and years of service are yet to come. Please join me in watching this video message from U.S. Senate candidate Herschel Walker.
Hi there, it's Herschel Walker. While unfortunately I'm not able to join you for your annual meeting in the Peach State, I want to address everyone virtually and thank you all for the work you do. What you're doing is incredibly important to our country, particularly your work to return power and decision-making to the states and the people who knows what's best for their communities. As you know, this is a principle America was built on, and we must protect it at all costs. This is especially true when it comes to raising and educating our children. The most valuable lesson I learned in life was from my parents, who taught me to excel in everything I do and never make excuses for anything. I grew up poor in a small town called Wrightsville, Georgia, and I was one of 7 children. But that didn't stop me from working hard, refusing to make excuses, and living my America's dream. Unfortunately, personal responsibility and making smart decisions are things we don't see coming out of Washington these days. And with the America's dream at risk on the current leadership, I'm fighting to protect that dream for everyone. By voting with the president 96% of the time, Senator Warnock has done more for Joe Biden than he's done for Georgia. And it shows. Look at the price of gas and food on the shelf. So please join us on this journey to restore our economy, strengthen national security, make Georgia communities safer, and protect the America's dream for generations to come. Thanks again for everything you do, and God bless.
We'll be back after lunch with more programming. Enjoy your lunch.
Please welcome back to the stage, Lisa Nelson.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed your lunch. Our next speaker today is Brooke Rollins, CEO of the America First Policy Institute and a dear, dear personal friend. A graduate at the University of Texas School of Law, Brooke is the former CEO of the Texas Public Policy Foundation. And at TPPF, her primary focus was criminal justice reform and grew the TPPF into one of the most recognized and respected conservative think tanks in America. In February of 2018, President Donald Trump had the great foresight to name Brooke as the Assistant to the President for Intergovernmental Affairs and Technology Initiatives and a member of the American Office of Innovation. In May of 2020, President Trump named her acting director of the U.S. Domestic Policy Council. Perhaps most importantly for ALEC and the people in this room, because of her work at TPPF, Brooke is one of the few people in Washington, D.C. who understands the importance of federalism and state legislatures. When she and Larry Kudlow founded the America First Policy Institute, I'm fairly certain that ALEC was one of her first calls, seeking to work with us to incorporate the policy initiatives of AFPI and the work we're doing here at ALEC. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to introduce my twin in red, Brooke Rollins.
So never would I ever correct Lisa Nelson, except when she calls me a Texas Longhorn, because I am actually a Texas Aggie. Woo! That in some corners of America might be called unforgivable. Now, I will say I did get a law degree from there, from UT, but I don't really claim it ever. But no, seriously, Lisa, I love you. I love ALEC. I am a Texas A&M graduate and very proud of that, but also a graduate of the University of Texas Law School. But all that aside, what an honor to be here. How about a big round of applause for Lisa Nelson and the amazing team here at ALEC. Really grateful. I see so many good friends in the audience, and just a couple of quick points before I launch in, and then you get to the real meat of the show, which is Speaker Gingrich. But the extraordinary Ralph Dollinger, his wife, Danielle. Ralph gave the opening speech. I know many of you know him. We have been on a Wednesday morning, 7 a.m. Bible study. In Texas, it's 6 a.m. Bible study. And I've got 4 kids I'm trying to get to school, but that's okay. I still make it most of the time. But Ralph and Danielle are 2 of the greatest patriots that love God, that love this country, that have perhaps done more to keep the spirit of God and the Bible and Scripture and Christ in our Washington Capitol. They did senior staff Bible studies for us in the West Wing when we were in office. They do Senate, House, and now I think we're moving into the states, if I'm correct. They are extraordinary. So it's a real honor to share the stage with you, Ralph and Danielle. Thank you for your incredible work, really and truly. I think their vision is to take that work into the states, and I know you're probably already working with many people in this room, but if you are not, I couldn't give them a higher endorsement for the work that they do and the mission that they bring, and really the love that moves and joy into the policymaking process through the connection that Ralph and Danielle are able to make through Scripture. So God bless you. Thank you for that extraordinary work. I also want to recognize my friends from Texas. Where are my Texas legislators? There they are. There they are. So Phil King is right here. I think the rest of the crew is over there. It is really an honor, and truly the honor of a lifetime, to have been with President Donald Trump in the last administration. But when people ask, where did you get this depth of policy knowledge, and how are you putting all these pieces together? And I say, one word, and that is Texas. What you all continue to do in leading the way on freedom and liberty and deregulation and less government and values and border security and all the things that we're so proud of, what you all continue to do and lead, and some of you for a long time, we've been partners, Phil King and Larry Taylor and Jeannie Morrison and Tam Parker and all my friends that are here. I'm so grateful to you. I truly stand on your shoulders. And whenever I am asked, about the time in the White House and all that we were able to accomplish, which I'll talk a little bit about before introducing Speaker Gingrich, I always give all credit to those who were on the front line in the state of Texas, and that is our great state legislators, my former think tank, the Texas Public Policy Foundation, who I'm sure there are people here from TPPF, and I'm just so proud of what that state means and what we've accomplished. So I'm so grateful to you, so I thank you for that. I also want to very quickly talk about the extraordinary American Legislative Exchange Council and Lisa Nelson. I never planned to be in the White House. This was not my goal in life. I said no about 6 different times before I said yes. But once I was there, I was all in. And there were a lot of organizations that we would often call on to help. Clearly, we were in the middle of the belly of the swamp, and the incoming missiles day after day, from impeachment to the media to big tech, it never stopped. But there were a handful of people and organizations that we could always count on. And at the very top of that list was Lisa Nelson and ALEC. And I could not be more grateful. For those of you that are in the audience that, are a part of this organization, you should know that when the rubber hit the road in the White House, and when there were some organizations that were nowhere to be found, that ALEC was there with us every day, fighting the good fight and representing you in the most extraordinary way. So Lisa, thank you for your incredible leadership. I am forever indebted to you for that. I mentioned that I expected to be at the Texas Public Policy Foundation forever when I got the call from the White House to potentially come join the team as an assistant to the president. I didn't know this, but found out later that that's called an app, assistant to the president, that's the highest level in the White House. And my office was just down from the Oval Office, and obviously the small town girl from Glen Rose, Texas, graduated with about 30 people in my high school class, went to Texas, Lisa, A&M, and studied agriculture at Texas A&M. And so for me to one day walk into that White House every day with luminaries like Newt Gingrich and others who were coming alongside us to help us fight for this country and to return the power to the people, which is really what we were for, was truly the honor of a lifetime. And I was so grateful to do it, and so happy that I actually did say yes and to answer the call. We knew in that White House what it was like to wake up on any given day and know that we fell asleep. When we fell asleep at the day's end, which was often about 20 hours later, working for Donald Trump is quite something. He is, and that's why we got so much done. He was a businessman who never stopped, and I certainly thrived in that environment, others did. But there was a good chance that by day's end, we would have changed the country in ways that, and sometimes we couldn't have even imagined when we started at dawn, pulling into that West Exec parking lot every day. And every single day was like that. It was fraught with responsibility, but possessed with purpose and imbued with the power of America's boundless potential. For those of us who worked for President Trump, we know that when he asked for something to be done, he expected it to get done, and often to get done 2 days prior to when he asked for it. Well, that makes perfect sense, right? But it was that sort of urgency with great purpose that allowed us to do what most presidents will never achieve, even in 2 terms. And the best part of all of it was that it was the American people, it was your people that you represent who reaped those rewards, not the Washington establishment. You all know, thank you. You all know the numbers, and I know many of you stand on sort of this record of achievement as well, but gaining 7 million new jobs, reaching the lowest unemployment numbers in 50 years with our African American, Hispanic American, Asian American, Native American, veteran, individuals with disabilities, those without a high school diploma, reaching record low number of poverty, securing the southern border, signing into law the largest tax cut in history, eliminating 8 regulations for every new regulation that went on the books, signing bipartisan criminal justice reform law, which ALEC had a big part of, to give every American a second shot and a second chance at life, bringing peace to the Middle East, protecting religious liberty and life by nominating and confirming 3 originalists, Justice Gorsuch, Justice Kavanaugh, Justice Barrett to the Supreme Court, along with more than 200 other federal judges at all levels of the judiciary, providing our depleted military with the resources they so desperately needed to protect freedom for us and around the world, creating the 1776 Commission, which was working to reclaim our American heritage and teach patriotic principles to our children in our schools. By the way, on day one, it may not have been the very first thing that President Biden did, but it was certainly the first few things he did. He completely deleted that commission. I mean, who does that? Teaching American history, he said, no, thank you. We became energy independent by becoming a net energy exporter for the first time in nearly 70 years. We took on a totalitarian China that for decades had been left unchecked and now possesses today arguably the greatest threat to American security. And yet, while I now hold a better understanding, because I had never worked in federal policy before, other than from a state perspective, but while I now better understand the federal level and what it takes to stop the bad stuff and really move the good stuff forward, I know now what I have always known, that the real battle for freedom is in the states, and the states are truly the guardians at the gate. And that's all of you. That is all of you. This is the very vision of our founders 250 years ago. In fact, they may have saved the best for last with the 10th Amendment, that any power, of course, not granted to the federal government, as you all know, is reserved to the states and to her people. And that is what we all fight for every single day. So thank you. You know, I now have the amazing honor and blessing, just over a year, as serving as the president of the newly formed America First Policy Institute. And my plan was to go back to the Texas Public Policy Foundation to continue working alongside our legislators in Texas. And really, that was the path I had promised and was planning to be on for the rest of my time working for freedom. But when it appeared as if our second term was not to come, at least contiguously, that it was probably time to think about how do we keep the America First movement going forever? And how do we ensure that the Washington establishment understands that the America First movement, which was inclusive of for the first time, of course, Republicans, but many Democrats who saw their party deserting them, for the first time seeing Hispanic Americans come under our conservative tent in a way that we all know in our hearts always should have been, but began to become real and apparent. For the first time seeing African Americans understand that the generational poverty that they had been trapped in, that it was our side that had the answers and the solution to how we achieve the real American dream for their children and for their grandchildren, for the blue-collar workers who had been left deserted in their barren towns where once were thriving with manufacturing and the industrial complex that had all left for overseas, that it was our side that for the first time had not started any new wars and weren't sending our young men to die across the world in efforts that were not putting America first. How do we ensure that that movement never dies? How do we come alongside extraordinary organizations like ALEC and others that were in the fight with us in that White House, and to make sure that everyone across this country knew that no matter the party, no matter the color, no matter how big your bank account is, no matter any of that, that the America First movement represents you, and it represents the power returning to the people. What an honor to do that work every single day. In just over a year, AFPI has assembled a team of more than 150 great patriots from the former administration, from the former campaign, from many of you out in the States, also from the current conservative movement. We now have 22 policy centers led by some of the greatest patriots and names that you all know, from Larry Kudlow to Linda McMahon to former secretaries Rick Perry and David Bernhardt to the great coach Lou Holtz and so many others that are now part of the AFPI team, including Newt Gingrich, whom you'll hear from in just a minute. But how do we align and unify a movement and an agenda that will last for the next 100 to 250 years? And that is the vision of the America First Policy Institute. Earlier this week, you may have seen former President Trump return to Washington, D.C. We convened a summit in Washington on Monday and Tuesday of this week, and I firmly believe that those 2 days will be remembered as the moment when Washington learned that the America First movement is here to stay. We went to the nation's capital with two messages. First, that the power must be returned to those which make up the best part of our country, and that is Americans. And secondly, a playbook, a roadmap, really a compass that is unapologetically of and by and for the American people, and what that looked like. You have in your seat those 10 pillars, what we will continue to fight for as the America First agenda continues. But here's the magic of what we accomplished in the last administration, but much more importantly, what we will continue to fight for and accomplish moving forward. That at the end of the day, we know how to return to the greatest economy in the world and make sure it works for all Americans. We know, because of so many of your work, how to put patients and doctors back in charge of healthcare. We know that our side, that the conservatives will be restoring America's historic commitment to freedom and to equality and to self-governance. We know that we've got to give parents control over their children's education and what they're being taught in their schools. We know, that's right. We know that we have to finish the wall and secure the border and end human trafficking and defeat the drug cartels. We know that the only way to deliver peace is through strength and American bold and courageous leadership. We know that we have to make America energy independent again. We also know that it's time to make it easy to vote, but hard to cheat. And every one of you I know are working on that issue. We know that it's time to provide safe and secure communities to all Americans so that they can live their lives in peace by funding the police and making law and order a priority of our movement. And we know, finally, number 10, that to truly create opportunity and prosperity and an environment where the American dream is alive to every man, woman, and child in this country, to drain the bureaucratic swamps in our nation, but also our state and local capitals. So, the America First agenda, which may take different forms moving forward, but bringing everyone together in Washington to talk about that with Speaker Newt Gingrich, former leader Kevin McCarthy, almost 60 members of Congress, 1,200 people in person, millions watching on their TV, would continue the movement forward and hopefully help you all as you return to your states today or tomorrow and start the important work again of representing the people of your states. Today, in the historic city of Atlanta, Georgia, I come to you on behalf of the America First Policy Institute, the conservative movement, all of our great friends that are out across this country and say, if we are unified, if we are aligned, if we continue to fight what we know is right, if we push back against big tech, big government, Hollywood, the education system that is out of control, we will win because truth is on our side. In closing, let me say this before I introduce Speaker Gingrich. I want to share the story of one lesser known American from our founding. Many of you probably know him because you guys are all really smart, but many people don't. But I think it's an incredible story that animates who we are today as a country, who we are in this room, and those who are fighting with us. There was a 25-year-old named Henry Knox during the American Revolution. George Washington was immediately impressed by this young man upon meeting him, and soon young Henry would be entrusted with one of the war's most consequential missions. George Washington and Henry Knox both knew that to drive the British out of Boston, long-range artillery was needed, weapons which the Continental Army did not then possess. Knox volunteered to lead a group to Fort Ticonderoga in upstate New York to steal the British artillery and return it to Boston. The noble train, as his team would soon become known, recovered the 120,000-pound lot of guns, mortars, and cannons from the fort and transported it intact to Boston 53 days later. Think about that. Thanks to Henry Knox, the young American cause scored its first major victory with the liberation of Boston just weeks later. At the time, Henry, as I mentioned, was 25 years old, a bookkeeper by trade with no formal military training and the education of a third grader. Knox would later go on to direct Washington's famous Delaware crossing, take charge of the placement of the artillery at Yorktown, and eventually become the first Secretary of War. Another sort of people in another country, another part of the world, at another time, would look at that resume and say, this is not the right man. But Americans are different. We're just different. We know that we are the ones that we are waiting for to take up the arms, to secure freedom, and to continue the greatest experiment that this world has ever known, and that is the United States of America. Thank you all for your amazing willingness to get in the arena, to run toward the fire. All of you could be back playing tennis, building a business, making a lot of money, and you have chosen to sacrifice in a way that our founding fathers would be so proud. And for that, we are forever grateful. Thank you, and God bless ALEC, and God bless America. Thank you all. And now for the great part of the event. It's my great honor to introduce someone who's been a friend for almost 20 years. Newt Gingrich is how do you even introduce Newt? I get completely overwhelmed sometimes because I'm not sure there's anyone in American life today who has done more for our cause over his career than Speaker Newt Gingrich. I find it incredibly poignant that the architect of the 1994 contract with America, who has spent his entire life building a bridge, in many ways, I would say, to this point in American history today, the revival, the restoration, and the renewal of the 2020s in America. Newt, of course, the former Speaker of the United States House, really one of the smartest. I often say that when my phone lights up, I don't know, and it says Newt Gingrich. I don't know whether that means we're going to have a 2-minute conversation on the latest polls or a 45-minute conversation on a moon base on Mars. You just never know, for those of you that know Newt. But the depth and the breadth of the mind and the passion and the dedication to America is unsurpassed. He is a hero. He is a giant. Probably his most proud bullets on his resume would be of dad and of trophy wife to one Callista, the former ambassador to the Vatican. Please help me welcome the extraordinary Newt Gingrich.
There are some introductions when it's impossible for the speech to ever get back to that point. First of all, when you talk about trophies, I think that Brooke and Lisa are pretty darn good trophies at anything, and it's great to be with both of you. I did once in 1979, Ronald Reagan came to Georgia to give a speech, a candidate for president, former governor, and I introduced him with sort of a Brooke Rollins quality introduction, and when he stood up, he stared at me because he realized I had just gotten the audience to an emotional level that he couldn't get him back to. And then he gave, of course, a Reagan quality speech, but it was still, I've never before quite had that understanding now what Reagan felt. So later on, Brooke, I'll get even, but it's all right. I also want to say that we were delighted that Joe DeSantis, who's here, who works on health policy with us, was able to come down and be part of this. And he also works with the, stop and let you welcome Joe, but he also works very closely with Brooke and her team. And next year will be the 50th anniversary of ALEC. I think my first appearance was in, 1980 at Chattanooga. So I've been hanging out with ALEC for a long time. And next year will be a lot of fun. I mean, ALEC has been one of the most consequential political organizations in the country, particularly from the conservative standpoint. And your commitment, as illustrated down there, to limited government, free markets, and federalism is a very important part of this. Now, before I get into that, I do want to take just a moment, and I thought Brooke gave a great talk. And she runs an amazing organization, and they had a great couple of days. But I want to stop for a second. I'm just curious. I've not done this before. How many of you have seen Top Gun Maverick? Raise your hand. Almost half the audience. How many of you have seen it more than once? Yeah, okay. So I do 3 newsletters a week that are free at Gingrich 360 and 3 podcasts that are free. And next week, I believe, we will release a podcast. I challenged our interns to develop a script on taking Top Gun Maverick, which is clearly a right-wing film. It has a white male actor as the lead. It has defense stuff. It has the word gun in the title. It has aircraft which are the enemy. And I said, I want you to write the woke version, the way the current woke Defense Department and Disney would produce it. And so we taped this week, the 4 of us, the 3 interns and me, the new, I think they came up with something like top flight or something. It can't be gun. You can't refer to the enemy. It is the country with which we are currently competing. And it just goes on and on like that. So some of you may find it amusing later on. But we did it in part because I think sometimes the most powerful technique is humor rather than anger. I think that in the 1970s, which was the last great wave of insanity, that in fact it was Tom Wolfe and his ability to write very funny social commentary, which just punctured the balloon. And people realized, yeah, it really is that stupid. Now, I have to confess, watching, for example, Kamala Harris laugh is almost beyond humor. I mean, I'm not sure there's any commentary, although somebody did put together 10 hours of her laughing as a website, which is, I tell people if your child is bad, make them listen to part of the website, but do not have them listen to more than 10 minutes or brain damage could occur. Now, let me tell you why I believe ALEC is extraordinarily important at this moment in American history. The fact is, we have an extraordinary range of institutions that are not working. We have, with a great deal of help, we have put together a program on a new American majority, which you can see at AmericanMajorityProject.com. And we've now spent, and Joe has been a leader in this, we've now spent since 2018 doing focus groups, doing polls, really trying to answer a question that Bernie Marcus, the co-founder of Home Depot, had posed, which is, can we find issues that create a big enough majority that you could govern in a stable way for several generations? And so we've gone out and asked much deeper cultural questions than just the normal political stuff you get out of the news media. And I'll give you a couple examples. The one which I think in some ways is the most important for you to think about is when we ask people, do you think it's important to restore the America that works? 87% say yes. Now think about that. That means 87% of the country thinks it's currently not working. And that says to me that a great desire on the part of the American people is for a political movement which is at a very practical level, offering better outcomes, better solutions, a better future in their lives, not in some theory, not in some abstract argument, but actually in their lives. Will the school actually teach my child? Will the small business be able to actually find people to work? Will we be able to have affordable energy? Can I actually afford to go grocery shopping? Now, all of this was captured for me by a woman in Western Pennsylvania who said that I have to go to 4 or 5 stores to find baby formula, and I can't afford to buy the gasoline to go to 4 or 5 stores. Now, that's an America that's really breaking down. When Starbucks announced the other day that they're closing 16 Starbucks because they cannot protect them, because they're overrun with drug dealers. That's really the receding of civilization. Channel 11 here in Atlanta just did a show in which they compared on a per capita basis Chicago and Atlanta, and on all but 2 indicators, there's more crime in Atlanta. Now that's a staggering shift from where we were 5 or 10 years ago. I have a good friend, a woman who said to me, I will not go to Lenox. Lenox Square was our biggest single shopping mall in the city. She said, it's just too dangerous. Well, now that's a profound weakening of civilization in every sense that we've known it. And then you have basically what's happened, which is, I think, fascinating, is you've had a coalition of all of the not normals. So if you believe deeply in a sexual revolution that's not normal, you identify with people who believe deeply in an anti-white racism, and you identify deeply with climate fanatics who would destroy human beings in the interest of a theoretical model. And you go all the way around the list. And you suddenly realize that this is the coalition which began in the 60s, grew steadily in the 70s. Remember, in the 70s, we had, at one point, in the early 70s, we had 2,500 bombings in a 2-year period. We had a Black Panther movement that openly was for the assassination of police and killed at least 13 policemen. So it's not like this all showed up last Tuesday, but it's like a cancer which has metastasized. And I think, frankly, that part of the problem was Trump. Trump scared the hard left so deeply, starting with his emergence and then his victory, that all of a sudden they all came out and got together and said, oh my God, we all have to band together. And then they all decided that since Trump was Trump, that it didn't matter who you were, you're my ally, no matter how nuts you are. And so basically, a coalition of the irrational and the crazy came together, and they then had a clever idea, which actually was pretty smart. Let's nominate a guy who will hide in a basement. Nobody will know, A, that he can't think very well, and B, that when he does think, he's crazy. And then let's give him a vice president who's even further to the left than he is, and then he will appoint every crazy person he can find. I mean, if you actually look at who they've appointed, it is a galaxy of people who are ranging between strange and weird, with occasional moments of people who are out of touch with the planet. And I'll just give you two examples. I believe that the reason they have a hard time dealing with violence, whether it's violent crime at home, or it's terrorism, or it's Russia and Ukraine, or it's China, I think the problem is that everybody on the left saw The Lion King and thought it was a documentary. And they believe that lions and zebras sing and dance together. And when you try to explain to them, you know, lions actually eat zebras, they go, no, that can't be right. Didn't you see the movie? And that's the world they operate in. Now, in a normal, healthy society, you would not say this is an argument between right and left. You would say this is an argument between reality and nuts. And that's because that's who they are. Like, we're going to have to find oil. Let's go to Saudi Arabia. You could have gone to western Pennsylvania, eastern Ohio. You could go to Texas. You could go to, Kansas, Oklahoma, North Dakota. There are lots of places in America that have lots of oil and gas. But that would be inappropriate. Now, I can't figure out why it's inappropriate. I mean, there's some deep underlying dislike of their own country. I don't want to say that they're anti-American, but they are deeply hostile to the historic America that has been the most successful country in history. Now, how does this all come back to you? We may well win the House and Senate this year. I think the odds are pretty good. We may well win the presidency in 2 more years. I think the odds are reasonably good. But we don't have enough solutions. And I think Brooke can tell you from all the people that she's assembled who've actually had practical experience. We have a State Department which on a good day is 97% on the left. We have an FBI which is permeated by corruption and dishonesty. We have, and the Justice Department, by the way, gave 97% of their donations to Hillary Clinton in 2016. You have a Center for Disease Control, which is a total bureaucratic disaster and whose utter incompetence cost thousands of American lives during COVID. You have, and I say this with great sadness because I worked very hard to dramatically increase its budget. You have a National Institute of Health, which we now know is riddled with dishonesty and corruption. You have a California unemployment compensation program which lost $20 billion to theft, mostly to criminals in the California prison system, using the California prison system computers to engage in identity theft. And the person who was in charge of having $20 billion stolen got a bigger job in Washington from Joe Biden. So you have this whole process nationwide. As you just saw last week, you have a Republican candidate for governor who is almost stabbed. The guy who tried to stab him is released within hours because the New York law provides for no bail. And then we wonder why the crime rate goes up. New York's crime rate this year, murder in New York's up 38% this year. So all these things are going on. But here's the question. So what's the replacement? We will not successfully save America by just being opposed to people who are crazy. We have to have systematic programs. And this is where the states, the whole concept of decentralization and the whole concept of government at the state level is vital. We need exactly what you all are doing. I talk to Lisa regularly, and the number of states that now have smart things happening, smart bills being written, is really vital. I mean, one of the things I'm going to challenge you on is every state should set up some kind of working group on the dumbest federal regulations and should submit here's a target list of things to repeal because they're counterproductive, they're destructive, they cripple our ability to innovate. Every state should be looking at how do we replace the bureaucracies. I mean this literally. Bureaucracy in America today is about an 1880 concept. And you live in a totally different world. And yet today it is totally dysfunctional. We need serious thought about mental health. And we need serious thought about, and this is something Trump touched on the other day, and I hope he will really expand on. We can't walk off from hundreds of thousands of homeless Americans and pretend that they are not endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. But if that's true, and remember, we're now trapped into a series of decisions made in the 50s and 60s and 70s that basically said, we shouldn't lock anybody up. And so we closed almost all the mental hospitals. And we were going to replace them with group homes. And nobody actually thought through, well, what if you have a person who doesn't want to go to the group home? And what if they actually, left to themselves, are going to end up living in the street in what Joe DeSantis said to me one afternoon is essentially an outdoor drug market. And so you have drug dealers, prostitution, rape, murder. You have people living in the streets. You have in San Francisco, you have to walk carefully both to avoid human feces on one side and to avoid needles on the other side. But it isn't just that they threaten you and me. Look what they're doing to themselves. What is our obligation to our fellow citizens if they are living in squalor with no future, no job, no education, no capacity to manage themselves? I'm not telling you I have an answer today. I'm telling you there are 50 states that should be thinking and working on these kind of problems and then should come to Washington. We need for you to become engines of solutions, laboratories of experimentation, an ability to reach out to your best entrepreneurs, your best science and technology people, and ask them, what can we do today? And I'm going to close with one example that I have been talking about a long time, as Joe can tell you, with almost zero impact. Almost everybody in America has a pretty sophisticated smartphone. We haven't really thought through. This is an embedded capital investment. We haven't really thought through what are the potential, what are the things we're trying to solve. And I'll just give you a couple quick examples. There should be a way to try to help every person with diabetes to make sure they take insulin. There are very few things that will do more to save money on health care than getting every single person who's diabetic to actually take care of their insulin. And you can program phones to help remind them to do it. There should be some method by which every teacher in a public school takes class attendance every day and reports it on their phone. So you literally know at 8:07 or 9:07 who's there and who's not there. In many of the biggest cities, schools are paid by the number of students who are enrolled. And about a third of the students don't show up on a regular basis. And 2 or 3 times a year, that when they count technically for the payments, they have what's called pizza day. And all the kids show up who never show up. They get to eat pizza, go home. They don't come back again until the next pizza day. But the school gets paid as though they were there. Well, these things are all solved. I mean, if McDonald's can gather information every single evening from 37,000 stores worldwide, we could do a dramatically better job. If you look at how pathetic the public health system was in dealing with COVID, where people were literally faxing back and forth, no capacity for information management, you begin to realize the potential that's out there. So I just want to close by saying we're at the cusp of either moving forward to relaunch America in one of the most amazing cycles of creativity and opportunity and energy in American history, at which point we will pull away from the rest of the planet. We will once again be the most dynamic, exciting, prosperous, and powerful country in the world. Or we're going to continue to decay under the control of unions and bureaucrats and left-wing crazies, in which case the whole fabric of the American system is going to literally, I think, shatter. That's how big the crossroads is. The states are vital in providing us specific, provable experiments turned into reality so we can then try to think through for the whole country how we in fact meet every single challenge. You are at the cusp of history. You're at the crossroads where it'll be decided, and what you're doing in your state, what you're doing with ALEC, is central to the future of the human race, literally. Because the human race, which has forgotten that we are endowed by our Creator with certain principles, including life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. A society which forgets that we stand for government of the people, by the people, and for the people. If that light goes out, it may well be 1,000 years before it's relit. This is a very precious, amazing country, and this is a very remarkable time. And each one of you has the potential to be a leader in helping get your country through, and by that, helping get the human race back on the path of freedom and liberty and a better future. Thank you very much for allowing me to be here.
Please welcome back to the stage, Karen Fan.
Thank you, Brooke, and thank you, Speaker Gingrich. Those words were so powerful. And as they both mentioned, first and foremost, our country is in a terrible place because of what's going on today, but it's a much better place because of what happened under President Trump. While he did great policies, while he did so many wonderful things during his short 4 years, one of the greatest things is exactly what Speaker Gingrich was just talking about. SCOTUS is now somebody that stands up for the people. We now have a U.S. Supreme Court that understands the U.S. Constitution and is putting the power back in the states. No more are we going to allow the federal government to keep our borders open and having criminals come across and threats to America. We have strong governors on our border states, some of the border states. Interesting to note the news this morning, if you saw it, our Texas governor and our own Arizona governor, voluntarily, illegal aliens are being put on buses and sent to Washington, D.C. Now, we have 7,000 illegal aliens coming across the border every single day, just between Texas and Arizona. There are 4,000 that just showed up in D.C., total 4,000 out of 7,000 a day that's coming. The mayor of Washington, D.C. wants them to call out the National Guard because she doesn't know what to do with 4,000 people. They're being overrun in their shelters. So now they're finally getting a little taste of exactly what we are dealing with on a statewide level. And it's about time. So not only are we going to secure our borders, but we also had the Dobbs decision come down. Not only can our conservative states start saving those babies' lives, and that is huge for so many of us. And what we did in Arizona, universal empowerment scholarships, so every student has access to the best education for their parental choice that they want. So Speaker Gingrich, you hit it right on the nose. It is the states. We are the ones that are going to have to follow through and pull this country back together again. And thank God President Trump has made that something that we can accomplish. So for all of you, I'd also like to say thank you to Georgia. You guys have been amazing. You're just awesome. You put together a wonderful week for all of us. We couldn't have had a better time. We appreciate it so much. I want to thank all of you who attended. What a great turnout. Every single meeting was just like this. All of our breakout sessions, standing room only. We couldn't get enough seats in there for everybody because there were so many things you guys wanted to hear about. So I just can't tell you what a great meeting this was. And I'm going to tell you what, it's going to be just as good, if not better, in Washington, D.C. in December. And we hope to see you all there. Safe travels home, everyone.